All right. We're gonna let it breathe a little bit. Let it breathe, and let everyone rejoin the chat. Yeah, you know how it is. It's free streaming. Most companies charge for the stream, and Facebook trying to get it going on for free. But I'm sure they got like a high load on their servers. Yeah. Yeah, everybody using it. They Facebook and they drive to work live. I'm like, okay, what you got for me? Like, I'm in traffic. It's like, do you really need to report this? All right, so you using up the bandwidth. So I'm going to give a moment, and when you can hear me, let me know. Yeah. This is going to get into cryptocurrency, but you need this, because sometimes when people explain to you, you don't even get, no, they don't have this knowledge. So it kind of seems like, okay, well, I got a little bit of time there. I'm not worried, but no, right now the door is open. I suggest making a segue into sovereignty ASAP. Drop what you're doing. Don't quit your job. But I'm going to give some instructions today on how you can really do well for yourself. Every aspect of how you can do well for yourself with cryptocurrency on a financial level. So again, we're at this point where the Knights Templar are propositioning the Jesuits to charge interest, because the Knights Templar are aware of a few things. One, if they can start charging interest, they'll eventually own the entire world. The more that they can spread these banks, the more that they can get in possession of different areas, then it will be pretty much nobody will be able to buy or sell without getting involved with them in some way or another. But they're not that smart, meaning that knowledge didn't come from them. That knowledge came from that head, because apparently the Jesuits figure out, and this is what creates our whole situation with Friday the 13th, for those who don't know, the Jesuits start getting reports. Actually, they say that this is what happened, that the Jesuits already knew, but they were willing to deal with whatever the Knights Templar were being accused of doing, as long as they can make good on this whole process that they said they were going to get going for them about securing the Holy Land. So the Knights Templar went right into business, and actually they were able to secure strong routes and begin winning the Crusades. So at a certain point, the Jesuits was like, they're kind of tainting our reputation now. Like, all the rumors, you basically know that they're worshiping the devil. And then they're like, yeah, but I guess we don't really need them anymore. So how are we going to go at getting rid of them? And one of the Jesuits was like, well, why don't we basically bring these claims to them, make it public. And since we already got basically witch trials burning and all that, we'll accuse them of doing what they're doing and then let the public drag them away. So this was the idea. I think it was Jacques Desmoulins and a few others. They rounded up the leaders of the Knights Templar. And on the Friday the 13th, they set them out to be burned, I guess, at the stake. And supposedly Jacques Desmoulins uttered a curse against the Jesuits that they were cursed forever, and that they would basically die horrible deaths and all sorts of stuff. And he uttered that curse to them on the Friday the 13th. Now, there's many stories that go on around whatever happened with those knights. Even the story that the Jesuits even bought them in, when you really understand the Jesuits, seems a little bit fabricated, brought them in and actually put them at the stake. It could have been, and probably was, a mock scenario. Like, so the public sees it as one thing. Oh, the Jesuits don't want the Knights Templar. Knights Templar stop existing as Knights Templar. They want that anyway because they need to move out of the spotlight and run these banks in the background. The devil has this entity, Baphomet, or actually Asmodeus, and a few other hyperdimensional scumbags get all together and concoct a ritual around money. So basically how it works is, so a person's signature is their two-dimensional imprint. And I haven't spent much time writing because it's just slow. Like, look how slow writing is. I wish I could just draw a bird or something. You just know what I'm talking about. So the signature is the 2D of the dead person, basically the 2D of the straw man body. Okay, so it's basically a two-dimensional imprint, the signature is. So when we have these signatures, when we sign on papyrus, which is basically the paper, notice the Jesuits are also known as the papacy. They make paper. Their master is Pappus. Okay, so they carve wood. They work with paper. They work with the power of wood, which is vast, wands and all those kind of things, old trees, willow trees. Like, there's a lot of power in trees. Ayahuasca is a tree. Okay, I'm just trying to get it's a vine, but it's a vine. Okay, I would just connect it for you. There's some trees in there, but there's a lot of knowledge. That's another age. There was an age of paper where even poetry, that's the age of romance, where they're basically casting spells on you, selling you this dream about this fictitious prince and Montagues and Capulets. This is their craft. Okay, that's why when they wrote that Bible, folks still don't know what it really is saying, and they just in love with it. You see, so they work with paper. Okay, so this paper they were putting together, basically, if they could get the two-dimensional imprint of the person on the paper with an obligation to the God that they trust, it meant that the person has sold their soul to the devil. And thus they would hold those souls. One place is the exchequer. They would hold these souls, and that's where this whole thing came with, the straw man and no names and all those different movements, which have been very powerful movements, and taught people a lot about, hey, this whole name thing, if it can be named, it can be controlled. So remember, on the top of all this trust law, they don't own anything. They manage it. So that way, when something happens, they're not on paper as the one that to go to, even energetically, spiritually. McDonald's is not getting a phone call himself. Mr. McDonald, you made my son sick. He ate this thing. No, you're calling customer service and, okay, we'll report that for you, ma'am. You're never going to get in touch with what's on top. So they've separated themselves from the reality and allowed this system of banking and the buying of souls and the debt and the accumulation of debt and weight, which means you just get held up. It's like you don't get enough money, you try to borrow money, you get in debt, you just get held up. Every single thing is it's a holder, it's a stick up. Like they rob you for your energy, your current. They form contracts, they carve paper. People have seen enough of what's in the dollar bill. I did a whole video on all the bills, mostly in the world, to show, hey, this is not just the dollar bill. Look, this galoosh, which is the name of all of that weaving that goes on. You don't even know what it's called. That galoosh and how that affects things on a vibrational level. That's the waves and the frequency right there. So it's just like there's another level of knowledge. Back around when they were playing around with wands and not PlayStations, there was a whole nother way of communication with nature and all that was here. And man and woman found their entertainment within something else, predominantly creating these interesting beings that you see walking around here all the time if you're taking a moment to look. So anyway, the debt system is created. The Knights Templar begin their banking throughout the world. Just like their cross, which is actually a symbol of the cube itself and mastery of the cube. The symbol of mastery over the cube. Let me draw it right. Hold on. There's a few of them. They all have different variations. Sometimes there's a curve. They like to work with the angles versus the curve. So this is their star. This star is a mapping of the vertices of a cube, which is the world that people have been confined to in their square minds. Okay, so, and then it basically comes out as a cross to a lot of people. This is the mastery of the four elements and the knowledge of the time in which there was nothing beside the four elements. And then what this ultimately connects into is, I kind of skip by real quick. Let me just rewind and then fast forward. And okay, yeah, so just to understand this, let me get my board here. Take just a quick moment. So basically that cube that I'm showing you is their symbol. The only place that you see different places, but the place that bears this symbol is what we recognize the most is Switzerland. Switzerland is the only country that never goes to war because they orchestrate the wars. Those who are behind the banks, the bank is in Swiss. You know that, right? But people don't know how deep it goes. That same cross is the same cross of the Knights Templar, which became known as the Knights Hospitallers. Then it's your hospital, probably your Red Cross now. You see what I mean? So they interweave themselves into every organization on some level or another because all have to report back to the bank. That's the real thing. Like whether you don't like it or not, don't you still collect your checks? Some people, now I'm growing my stuff. You collect a check somewhere. You're collecting some greenback somewhere, and it's almost unavoidable pretty much till now. That's why I'm actually talking about this right now. Not because I just want to jump on to a whole nother subject about something. It's only about that the key to this, when you understand the metaphysics, crypto basically means death. Okay, crypt means death. Okay, it also means encoded, because nobody knows what's going to happen when you die. Right? So cryptography means that the ability to vacuum death, dead presidents, old talismans, things people don't even understand, vacuum their asses all up into this big vacuum of this cryptocurrency coming in. Then when it goes in, no one knows where it came from, meaning that that dollar, $100 is gone. It will never be back into the world again as we know it. Now, this is something that's happening, but I'm skipping ahead a little bit. But just remember, there's a connection with this, because when you understand what's going to happen when you die, now you've transcended death. Now you can truly live as we know it, meaning that we can, when we don't have that thing still hanging over our head that we often ignore, the Green Reaper, right? He's just walking around with it. It's like, I know I'm eventually going to die, and we don't know what's going to happen then. It should be a concern. Now, anybody who's not concerned about it has gone several layers into programming to just get it out of their consciousness. They in there having fun. Even like, yeah, I ain't even gonna lie, I was one of them. I was, yeah, baby. And then you're just like, the time is ticking, you know it's ticking, but even for me, it would like get red sometimes. And sometimes I'd be like, you know, still with the Christian programming running, like, man, this is the devil. Like, this ain't it, but it's fun. So all those phases we go through, we have to come back in and be, like I said now, being present, being here, because you got to make up for that time loss. But the interesting thing is you're a time machine. Right? So we recollect the past as our memories. We are there still. We can remember. We stand in the present, and we be here right now, even in the moment. But we can have a vision of the future. And because we can do that, that's all I need. Like, you don't got to give me nothing else. Like, I got full range like that. I'm going to just stick to that and see how much I can do with that. I'm sure it'd be way beyond what can go on here. So remember, you're precious. You got some real jewels. It's just you've been robbed, though. Seriously, it's been a time where someone has devaluated what you're truly worth and put value into something else. And then that something else has become like an egregor animate on the dimension, now bossing everyone around. They got an invisible God right now. This is hilarious. They got an invisible God that tells them what to do, that looks like Santa Claus. This is ridiculous. If I start tapping into something like that, man, no telling where you'll find me at. But there's other people there now. So this is why this ain't playing games. Like, your elders were not playing games with you when they were trying to teach you about your uniqueness. And I say try because it was still up to you. But when they were getting for the process of teaching you about your uniqueness, it was always very serious. Why? Because they took you through the 4 elements, right? Now you need to know the real gods, not the ones that are asking you to do anything. Those are the lackeys. Like, oh, you need to worship me. Man, gods don't talk English. This is fire, earth, wind, water. If you go long enough without heat, what's going to happen? If you go long enough without water, what's going to happen? Go long enough without air, what's going to happen? And then in that order, meaning there's even a rank to them of which one you can deal with the most because of how, deal without the most because of how your being is juxtaposition. Yet man stretch and woman stretch across this cross. Literally, that's what it means. You're stretched out across the cross, right? They call that on the spokes of the wheel of time. Right? Playing around in here like these folks didn't just decimate your ancestors. And I don't care who you are, whether you're Polish, whether you're African, you're black, whether you're white, whoever you are, it's been slavery. And it's been going on a higher level until right now. And then you still got people running around here just tapped into something else, but time out for that. So here we go. We're going to keep going. So you see how it's all structured. You see that basically they're playing talismans on ode to what a piece of paper can do. Okay, like it's just something that you don't know about, but you can concentrate power within parchment. So if you fast for 2 weeks and then on the last day, as long as the parallax is angled properly, meaning just like the sun dam comes out and heats things, just like the moon starts growing things during a certain time, so too there's a time and place for everything. Yet man is not observant of the stars. He's wandered after the false stars and the false gods, right? So the true one, the astronomy, the disk, you know what time and place for everything. You ain't rushing because you already know there's going to be an ideal time for you to get into it. So what happens is that there's this process because man is a talisman himself. Woman is a talisman themselves. One of the layers of the body is a pentagram. That's the body. It's phi, right? That's 6 or sex, right? That's a part of the being that we're layered with. So, okay. So what happens is that in this process, take a moment here. In this process, man becomes and woman is the talisman, so they can perform the magic. And they perform the magic, let's say, for instance, just to close down the whole idea of talismans. So since you're magic as they know it, you could come after a 2-week fast. Now you're super hungry, but you wax strong, like the body's almost dead. Like it's lost the battle, and now you're almost completely spirit. That's the purpose of fasting. But body's barely hanging on, trying to eat the things the spirit eats, but it doesn't like it. The body likes matter, prana. It likes to eat vegetables. It can even get to crazy enough to start eating meat. Like that's the body. But the higher level of consciousness, it's a higher level of sense. So it eats something different. It must feed on a higher essence. So when you go on the fast, the body starts to basically die because it's not getting fed. But the higher side is actually coming more alive. This is actually, I ran into this situation personally where I almost killed myself. I actually got to a point where I really felt like my joints was detaching. And it was only a last hope to go and see this guy that this girl was recommending that probably would know maybe what was going on because he did Tai Chi. So I went to him and he said, hey, let me test your Ming energy real quick. And I was like, okay. And I'm thinking in my mind, I'm completely anti at this point. I'm like, man, another sham. And then so he was like, he did one of these movies like, man, your Ming's way out here. And I was like, okay, what does that mean? He said, basically, you're going to die soon. And I was like, what? I was like, now I'm like, damn, I shouldn't have came and see this dude anyway. And then he's like, yeah, because you don't want to be here anymore. You keep sending this signal to your consciousness that you don't want to be here. And you need to stop doing it. Right? Because remember, we went through this time where it was so tough to be here on this planet. We didn't want to be here no more. And that's the truth. But then what happened was we started realizing that, hey, man, that's just all about the process. You can cry all you want. And it will bring tears to others' eyes. But still, once you're done with the dreams and once you're done with these kind of actions, you'll still have to come back to this. Even my teachers just say, why do you do that? You're still going to have to come back to this. So what I'm saying is that it got to a point where first I didn't want to come back to it anymore. And when I start getting more and more powerful and more strong in my consciousness of realizing the difference between the spirit versus the flesh, I started to basically kill the flesh. And then at that point, I got to a point where I couldn't even move around. Every time someone sneezed, I was catching a cold. And this master clearly was like, yo, that part of your mind you need to change. You got an orbit. Everyone's going to leave here at some point. You don't got to rush the process. Be here now. Stay with these people. Do your mission. And bam, I recovered. So it's just an ode that, again, your body eats different levels of energy. This is what we're talking about. So what happened was is that when you go on that 2-week fast, let's say now you're all waxed strong with that power, right? But what happens when you start eating again? Well, what happens is that obviously the vibration starts to come down. Why? Because it's just, this is so simple. This is not even like spookism or whatever they call it. This is in the frequencies, vibrations, tones, wavelengths, all the stuff we study here. When you have less density inside of your organs, they have nothing in there for them to process. They just vibrate. And as that song says, vibrate higher, you start vibrating higher and higher and higher. And then this process, it puts you into a different zone. So then sometimes what happens is when you obviously start eating, you feel the organs back up again. And now the vibration goes down. So how can you save? How can you hit the save button? Sometimes I'm into these real-time role-playing strategy games because it's like even crazier than chess. It's like chess with 100 pieces on the board. But then sometimes I just know that I need to save it because the computer could bust a move on me. So I got a save button. So how can you save all that essence that was right there in that time? Talisman. Now, not only is it saved in your consciousness, I would advise to understand that everything that's outside we have within. You are the living talisman. There's a ring or a layer that you've gone through during that experience. But there's another way where you can actually conscribe something. Now, this could be your form of art. That's why talismans are not just a little piece of paper with squiggly weird lines on them. Talismans also are works of art, paintings. Like the Mona Lisa is a talisman. So what it is that a person that has any form of their unique expression, if they take it during that time and they create something, it stores, saves it. And then that's the power of consecration. Okay. So the dollar is consecrated. Now the reason why our dollar especially is a rectangle, right? Because it's on phi. Okay. And it's got a face here, which is a dead president. Okay. So that's necromancy. It's like, you see what I'm talking about here? You have a talisman constructed with a dead person on it with their two-dimensional signature. You have a magnetic strip running across it, so that way it has a power supply. The reason why it becomes a power supply for it, for those who have that question and understand electronics, is because it's actually a tree. It's still made out of paper. Paper doesn't charge with electric, but it charges with magnetic. And so thus, power has been given to the God that they trust. This dead necromancy holder, which is basically all the dead presidents, are actually basically tubes to the egregor that was created during when they decided to bring from heaven to below and work the craft on the entire world. And basically that's what you're dealing with within secret society, is that they concentrate all their energy into an egregor. So that way the egregor can move on their behalf, and that they can have more than the constraints of their consciousness, which would be quite a bit of things, meaning that instead of working as one person, one being expanded, they work as several beings with a partial level of expansion, i.e. a degree, to create a complete being. And that's how the power is divided. That's called compartmentalization. Okay, so that same structure of division is actually everywhere, because they are actually worshiping the god of division, who they call Deuce, which is Deus Pater, Zeus, Jesus, the division, confusion, judgment. You judge, you shall be judged. And again, this is the part of the judgment. So 1 second, let me make sure we're still good. Yeah, you just gonna get it canceled here. Okay, I got you. Okay, so we're done. So this is it, meaning that now we're going to dive into the cryptocurrency, because now you get why it's such a big thing to actually get out of being a debt slave and dealing with money and talismans, because they do their own rituals in the expanse of what they're involved in. It's almost like, you know, they have this saying of how you can be hanging with the wrong people and then end up getting shot up and it had nothing to do with you. That's just what we're talking about here. The depth of what they've gotten themselves involved in is more than you can even fathom. They've opened the chasm on them and thrust themselves in it. So instead of you jumping in too, it's like there's a rope now to, hey, get out of this. I have a picture that I'm going to show later on to talk to you about really briefly about how it's actually positioned, if I can get to it. But basically, you will be going back up through a wormhole. That just like the cosmos is here as they show it to you, this is a wormhole, so it goes down like a sink, right? So you got it going down, and actually at a certain point, it breaks off into a cube. The prism shatters, and it becomes what we know as the cube or the box. That's a pretty bad cube. The box. And so all the people's memories, all the self-ID, all the fake stuff that they've accumulated, fake only because when you get in the face of realness, it just doesn't stand up. Not that it doesn't have some validity to you now. So you got these connections called personalities, which actually spread out into zodiacs, and it just becomes basically a choose your own adventure. And where people are loading data that they think is new from a mainframe that actually possesses all realities and all results from the languages or the codes, which we call language, and loaded within it. And the only way to actually get out of this is to become an uploader. So you actually learn how to vibrate so that you can spin like this, because you can't get out of the cube unless you could assume the shape. And this is what they would call, like, see down here, the only time this knowledge was actually trying to leak to humanity, and even then they were already trying to manipulate things, is with the Merkaba. See, because the Merkaba can control the physical field because it matches with the cube. This is the cube. So when they were trying to teach people, oh, well, you have a low triangle and a high triangle, you imagine it, and then you can imagine anything you want in the world and it'll manifest, right? So it'll manifest only in the world, but it won't get you here, and nothing got there. You could see it, and that's the order of the Melchizedeks, that they never made it beyond the priest of Ha Elyon. Like, they stayed here, right here in the opening. Now, this opening is important because you have to understand this is the opening to a black hole. This is the entry and exit point. And where this resides still to this day is out there where the pyramids are, where the god of death, I can't even draw it, sits out there, which was Anubis. That's what, you know, at least Hemet did leave everybody when he was sober enough, is to give them a little explanation of that world, that underworld, and what guards the underworld, Black Anubis sitting there. And then this is the realm to the underworld. So this is going into the black hole. So if you can't traverse the wormhole, like they're showing on a lot of these sci-fi programs, you come out disentangled. We call that going crazy. This means that the person's body is still here, but they're out of their mind. And it's like they're not here anymore, and they're betwixt. They're stuck between two worlds. They come back sometimes, and you're like, okay, he's back. And then they fade back out into some crazy. You see that over there? So that's betwixt the chasm. So those who know how to ride the wormhole, real galactic surfers, also known as that sailor, can actually corkscrew themselves, which is what Dan Winter was talking about. Get yourself into an implosion vehicle rather than dealing with unorganized flesh all the time or confused spirits all the time, and then actually corkscrew yourself back into the cosmos. Now you're on the higher mainframe, which functions on curves, arcs, and degrees, the real ones, not vertices and those kind of things of what's dealt in the physical world. No more communication with this kind of structure, but only communication with the cosmos. And those interactions have always been like, well, welcome home. Like, man, damn, you got up out of there. You're gonna have to go back though, because your orbit's still going, but you learn how to corkscrew. So once you know that, now there's like, you just feel like it's fulfillment, right? It's the difference between success and fulfillment. Success is when you accomplish something like, hey, I made it to the gas station before the gas ran out. Success. Fulfillment is like 70 years old sitting back there like, man, there's nothing I really need to come back for. I don't regret that I did anything. I don't need to be back in another time. That's not in your consciousness. So then you let yourself free. Remember, we're the only ones standing in our own way. Nothing has power over us. All that I was just explaining to you that they cooked that up through a consistent progress of dismantling people's belief in themselves through gods. Like, remember, all the Jesuses and all of this, none of that stuff as its original story, its original Gregors, its original rights was ever externalized. It was all a magnum opus of the process of how we can eat some wheat and turn it into a seed of life for a man and an egg of life for a woman. That there was an entire alchemical incubator going on inside of here. And when we discovered that, then we would know what God knows. And that's the only connection of what was going on. So nobody was trying to find this externally. They were all looking for it within. So woe to the ones who created something external for people to bow down to and to believe was actually existing, okay? And not realizing where the knowledge truly is. So here we go. Now we're rolling into part 2 here. Enter the new age. What happens is, and we're fast forwarding quite a bit, some papers appear online from a Satoshi Nakamoto. Now this happens after a few key things happen in the world. One, debt. The world starts going broke. Remember the whole Greece thing? Remember all these countries, they need to be bailed out by the World Bank. They need money, right? So the world, as we know it, whole countries started going broke. And they were results to it. So it's different than the one that everyone's always broke. Remember, wealth is now and actually the economy and all that's measured now on deficits. So it's like basically measured on being broke. It's not measured on being successful, balancing out any of that. Okay. So ultimately what happened is that many of these countries, their debt notes were called in by the bank. Like, okay, well, all right, now, it's time for you to pay this interest. And they were like, man, you know that nobody can really pay back interest. What you talking about? It's like, well, we're going to need the Palisades then. We're going to need. And they're like, oh, come on. What do you mean? Oh, it's like that now? It's like, yeah, it's like that. You're cut off. And this is, you can't, honor amongst thieves. Come on. Like, no, it doesn't happen. Dragons or snakes in this case, they're like the crystal birds. They, mine. And when one's about to die, they all jump on them. I'm in power. So this kind of thing. Right? They're completely oblivious to who they truly are anymore. They've given themselves over completely to mammon. All right. So what happens here is that countries start going bankrupt. It was a serious thing. People start realizing that, it's not the country's problem anymore, or they're not fixing my problem. I'm going to have to fix it. And for many of them, it was too late. It just, the as in dropped completely out of it. So it's still going on, and it's happening in more places. You even have nice places just full of the people that they don't want it there, they don't have jobs for, and they're a little racist against. So it's upheaval, okay? It means that the diaspora of the world, the pot, like who moves the cauldron, right? So those souls that are moving now, coming out of the lands, the deep lands of the fertile lands, they're moving, and now they're moving into another place. So that's energy moving. It's coming down from the south up to the north. So this is like world Kundalini, right? Like people got to put this, you can't spell it out for everyone. You got to do your own work, but this is what it shows. It's like you got people moving, they're moving up. Energy is going to start moving up in the bodies, but of course, this doesn't mean, like some people always say, like, well, that's going to get better then. Nah, this is not a better or worse. This just is. If you can position it so it'll actually work out beneficial and harmonic for you, but it's going to happen. You can find people on a high level completely depressed, completely like, oh man, my kid, he never turned out to be shit. Look at him. Man, oh man, they really ripped me on that last Ferrari I just bought, and I just lost all this money over here, and that wife, she's a slut. I just know. So just because they got a lot of money, it doesn't mean that they actually have the higher state of consciousness. But notice how people actually believe that right now. They believe, oh, well, if I get up there, then it's going to be better for me. No, I've watched people that went so high, they don't even know how to come down anymore. Oh, namaste, it's all going to be better. All we have to do is hold space. Meanwhile, the entire damn house been blown off. It's like, was that a hurricane? Yeah, it is. It's an alarm clock. Wake the hell up. Nothing happens unless you make it happen. We basically want it like that. That way, when we do something massive, we use our own energy. We can count on actually becoming reciprocated by the symmetric vibration that would actually be responding to us. So here we go. So you had a scenario where, one, people going broke. Two, the CIA decided they were going to start introducing double agents again. So we had like WikiLeaks leaking every damn thing, like basically a big leak saying that, hey, everything you thought is not true anymore, but from a business level, like, so you guys actually understand it because it has to do with money. All that money you guys spent on that over there, it actually didn't get there. It actually went to buy missiles for this country. And also, check out my friend Julian. He's got some other stuff to say. And then Julian's like, oh, yeah, remember all your safety and like all your records and all your public, all that is actually being sold right now. And on top of that, Equifax is going to come out and say they even lost all your stuff just to kind of cover their ass. But the truth is that basically everything about who you are, it's already been sold to somebody else because that's all dead anyway. That's all not even real. So anyone who was listening to that, and there's actually more people than you think, it really was a career ender for them. Like it really was like the day that they finally realized that they had been lied to. I had that day a long time ago too. We all have it. But it's a very strong point. Let's keep monitoring that, make sure the sound stays on, batteries are good. Okay, so I'm wrapping this up. So what happens is that, so remember, like the whole world is now on their level. This is not a spiritual memo that goes out. It's a business memo. And it's involving thousands and thousands of documents for anybody who's actually looked into any of that stuff that basically talk about just how bad it truly is with the money, with the activities, with our privacy, with how we're to be treated, all of that. So it was exposed in black and white. Okay, that's the easiest way to say it. So after that happens, Satoshi appears. Okay, it's like watching Heroes or something. Nobody knows who Satoshi actually is. Satoshi appears, so basically on the BBS sites and on the sites that traffic things like code, someone produces some, I believe, white paper. Now remember, all the finer details you're not going to get today, meaning that some of this stuff I'm not like 100 on, but I'm 90. Starts posting some white paper of a code of basically how to create a system that has zero chance of being frauded, hacked, or any of that, has the ability for transactions to occur, money, but also anonymity, and I was practicing that word today, anonymity still exists, meaning that even though we see the transaction, we're able to authenticate the transactions coming through so we can balance the books, balance the ledgers, everything is fine, zero fraud, but also we don't necessarily know who made that transaction, so all of their privacy is protected. Because imagine if I got $30 million or whatever, let's say, I actually probably take around 300 at least now, I want to buy an island. The last thing I really want is third party, which is not even the government. but third party knowing I bought an island for $300 million. I'm going to have all sorts of good. I have to step up my security at that point because I'm going to have all sorts of people coming at me from different levels trying to get to that 300 million. So I need that to not even be known. So that's just only one reason. But one of the biggest reasons actually that Satoshi Nakamoto code became used in Bitcoin was because of the anonymity part. Anonymity. And it's because there were sites like, I guess that was 4chan. I even think it became 2Ns after a while. There was Silk Road, which was the old site, right? Silk Road. Don't go to these sites. You know, right away you're going to get put on the list, you know, of the computer. The computer's just going to watch you after that. It's not actual physical people back there anymore. You know, they don't have manpower for that. A computer will watch you. So these sites were selling all sorts of stuff from drugs to they shipping it during USPS. USPS said they received like a 90%, or no, it was crazy. It was like 300, 400% spike in finding drugs in packages in the mail. And this could be shipped any kind of way. It could come as a screwdriver, it could come as whatever. And all this was coming from the Silk Road or these websites that were selling this. And because they can't check every package, a lot of it was actually getting through. And the only thing that needed to be solved with these kind of sites was how's money going to transact? And that was the birth of Bitcoin, or actually the popularity of Bitcoin, okay? Because this Bitcoin, which was then one Bitcoin, could be used as an equivalent to $1. So it actually started out that one Bitcoin was $1. And the reason why they wanted to use that system is nobody would know who was transacting. So, you know, if somebody's kicking in doors or whatever, they wouldn't even know whose doors to kick in. So this goes nuts. So this system of anonymity, now we know one Bitcoin right now is actually about to hit $6,000. And it catches on. So let's say Bitcoin, so we got $1, or excuse me, 6,000, let's say $6,000 now, which they're saying because Amazon is actually somehow in a conference considering accepting Bitcoin right now. So everyone's anticipating there's going to be a big spike, so people are buying in. So $6,000 equals one Bitcoin, right? I think it's like this, something like that. I don't know. So $6,000 one Bitcoin. So technically, what you got to realize is going on here right off, because see, there's a lot of things that people skip when they're trying to explain this, and people are trying to learn it from them. The first thing is that if there's ever a country in the world where one of our dollars or 6,000 of our dollars equals one of theirs, we're automatically peasants compared to them. That we are basically, we're serfs. That's what they call them. We'd be serfs because our currency would be so valueless compared to something like that. You got to have 6,000 of them. This is like being in Mexico 20 years ago with $1, right? And you see how that went. So the truth is, this is a world that already exists. Now, the other interesting thing for a while, and this is what many people never report on, is that, remember, who was holding the most Bitcoin? Who was holding the most Bitcoin? Obviously, the people that were selling the drugs, the people who were selling the things on the Silk Road. So when they were transacting for one Bitcoin, and this is going to lead you to, this is critical thinking. When Bitcoin was only worth $1, remember, people were buying drugs, so they were selling a lot of drugs. Like you go on this site and you buy the best weed, and it's even $10, $20 cheaper than you could actually get it. You got a lot of people placing those orders. So it wasn't like they were making like little bit of money. They were making a lot. And they become the biggest Bitcoin holders. And that's why people need to think about that. That remember, the people who were running the dark web and the Silk Road, no, I'm joking. They were the ones that were holding the most Bitcoin. So when that started becoming worth a lot of money, there were two ways. So some people want to debunk that, like say, well, so you're saying that the CIA was the ones that were running those websites? I don't know. I didn't say that, but you know what I'm talking about, right? So even further on than that, if you don't think that they became large Bitcoin holders, then it would have definitely happened when they start kicking in the doors. Meaning that, yes, all that Silk Road, even the guy who started the site, all the accounts, all that end up getting seized by the FBI and the CIA. Now, the thing about cryptocurrencies, because everything is on a cold wallet or a hot wallet or some software or something, it's actually there. And when you get it, because it's anonymous, you have it now. That's why I say, you ever lose your cold wallet, your piece of paper with your code on it or whatever, that was like your money right there, and there's no way to recover it. It's like leaving $100 downtown. So when they went in, apprehended all these people, they also apprehended their cold wallets and hot wallets and all the rest of the wallets from cryptocurrency. So if they didn't come into possession with most of the coins, and this is important to know now because of something I'm going to explain later, they didn't come to the possession of the coins in the beginning because they were actually running a lot of those outfits. They actually did for sure come into them when they went and kicked in all the doors of the people who supposedly were running it. So you just know that they have them. And the reason why it becomes important to know that they have it is to still remember that means that the underbelly of the nasty little beast is actually the one that's a part of this new oligarchy where their money is worth that much compared to the money that they have in circulation. So word to the wise, just remember, because still, again, nobody knows who Satoshi Nakamoto was. Where there's power, there will be fear. So remember, just as powerful as this could be, it actually can rear itself into another direction. And it has done that already. There's lots of fraud in the industry. There's things going on, but it doesn't mean that there's not something here for you to pay attention to right now about if you are working yourself properly into this whole thing, you will never work again, period. And now's the time. You still have 2% of the people in the world that are actually aware of this. So what happens that's important to explain is that Bitcoin is basically a ledger. Anytime money is moving around just like a ledger between multiple computers that all have to sync up and say, yeah, that ledger is clear. I'm just making it simple right now. That ledger is, it's authentic. That's real stuff. That's all they can really do. Then came another coin called Ethereum. It started as a crowdfunding campaign. And this Ethereum, so now we got $300, actually excuse me. Yeah, this is wrong, isn't it? So yeah, $300, somewhere around there equals 1 Ethereum right now. Okay. So Ethereum comes in and says, hey, and I'm just giving it to you in a whole nother way of understanding it, but it will tap you into what's going on, but so you don't start getting confused. I'm basically making a story out of it. Ethereum comes and says, hey, you know that thing you're using called blockchain, which is the ledger? We can also use this for other stuff. Some of the ideas are like, hey, why don't we use it for voting? That way we can authenticate that each vote is really real rather than like a computer that said it was 300 votes, but it was actually somebody who rigged the whole thing, got hacked. Why don't we use it for making sure that nonprofit organizations actually are really getting this money to who we're sending it to because they can see all the transactions, but it's not like any real information or secure information is being exposed. Why don't we use this so it's almost to what you can do with this code called the blockchain? And I'll put that here now so you can understand that in your mind. Is pretty much like the instruments of creating a new functioning society in a new world. Now remember, this new world's already going on. We're about 4 years late. You see what I mean? Like 4 years late, but still right on time, because it's like there's so many reasons why people just turn their back on this. The governments are like, please don't make it happen, though. If we even say anything about it, it just gets worked. Don't say anything. You said it. Okay, say we on the side. Say we not on the side. So they're scrambling. It's disruptive. That's what the word means. That means that they didn't really prepare for it, can't really prepare for it. So then also you got the people. The people are like, crypto, is that computers and stuff? I'm not going to put my money in no damn computer, and they gone off and that's it for them. So there's a lot of reasons why it's still at 4 years and only 2% of the human population knows about it. But now that, again, the big players are starting to say, well, shoot, if we don't start taking cryptocurrency, we can't get any of that money that's vacuuming into this world of money where it's basically literally raining money. Meaning that many of these ICOs that are coming up, and we'll explain that in a minute, they're leaving off with $14 million. That means it's getting vacuumed from the world, from all different countries, and now funneled into a cryptocurrency and just sitting somewhere in a crypto currency format. And then other people can come in and actually start sharing in that wealth in different ways. And that's what we're going to be talking about in a minute, about how you actually can do well for yourself with this. So just remember, so now the reason why I explain this, and now I'll finish explaining this now so that way it sticks. The reason why I was explaining to you that the Alphabet Boys are predominantly involved in Bitcoin, meaning they hold the most Bitcoins, is because all the legacy coins, legacy means first. So the coins that came first, like Ethereum, I think you have Dash, you have Litecoin, right? So many of these coins are basically like some of the pioneers, the first ones to develop applications. And most of those applications are like just transaction and banking applications. So their coins are actually worth and solid right now. So what was happening is that, and that's what I was saying, there was like a run, like other people wanted to start taking cryptocurrencies because they're like, hey, there's all this money building up. I checked it this morning. I think there was like 2,020 coins out right now, something like that. So how many ICOs have already launched? Okay. 95%, as one guy gave a figure, 95% of those are scams, because an ICO is the same as an IPO, and it tends to that. This would be an initial public offering, like when your company goes public. This is now when your coin or your utility goes public. But the difference is when an IPO goes public, you want to buy into it, you got to go to the stock market. Basically, that means you said you're going to go to Vegas. You're never going to beat Vegas. So the first day, they need to be paid back for even allowing them to be an IPO. So they basically buy up all the stocks and shares, like of Apple. So then when they finally launch, let's say Apple stock, the first day it goes up, right? And that's because all the people who got the private shares and all that, they're selling it, right? And the people are buying it. And then like a few days later, it just drops out. And then from there, it's just like always trying to swim back to recover. And it's like, they're telling you, well, you know, you'll make 7% on this year, John. And it's like, oh, great. And it's robbery. And they know it is, and it's rigged. So because of that, when you're dealing with an ICO, these are real people. And it's so easy to do in retrospect that a lot of ICOs are already started up, and they're just coming up with anything in their mind that's going to be their utility. Some people are buying into it because there's like, just like a stock, there's a process called pump and dump. That means that it could look like it's about to be something major, and then they could even make it seem like that through media and through buying it themselves. Then everyone starts buying it. Then right when it gets to its highest price, they sell all theirs, and then the shares drop, and then everyone else is left with shares that are never going to be worth anything, and then they are off with these millions of dollars. So 95%. And also remember, because this is also going into a world, unless you're using escrow, that is virtually anonymous, even if you're using escrow. That means that if someone does run off with your money, there's no police to call. Remember, it's decentralized. So there's no Knights Templar to call. Hey, bring those Sharif badges over here with the 7-pointed inverted star and that 5-pointed pentagram and take care of these folks. So none of that can actually happen. So this is why you're literally becoming the bank. Okay, think of this as you are now the bank. So all your protection basically is on you. So you have to protect yourself from hacking and different things. Not hard to do, but you just can't be sloppy in there. Just like that's why you don't run the bank right now. Some of us have been pretty sloppy at how we're handling our financial aspect. In fact, I'm actually having the conversation that many of our fathers should have actually had with us on that sit down about investment. But again, many of the blowout from this reality and living this way has caused a great degradation on our ancestors and our elders, right? So this means that somebody has to get with it then. Somebody has to be like, hey, the reason, and also remember, one of the reasons why I'm here right now and just shaking you like this, like cryptocurrency is because if during the time of the internet or 4 years ago when this was happening, and all those different people that I even knew then, if somebody had came up to me and really, just not an email like, hey man, you should check out cryptocurrency. It's like, that's not how I tell people anything. I'm like, look, you sold, you better watch these numbers and these papers, and I'll go through, because I'm really telling you something that you need to pay attention to. When they come to me, they're like, yeah, man, you might want to check crypto. When you get to the toilet about to use the restroom, you may want to check out cryptocurrency. And it's like, if 4 years ago, they had shook me up, I mean, I'd be funding all the consciousness at that point. I'd be like, yeah, let's do it. Let's try that. Oh, Hadron Collider and plasma motor. Let's try that. Community, 500,000 people all speaking different languages. Yeah, let's try that. Because you would literally have the money like that. Like, you're talking about 5,000 Bitcoin, $22 million right now. And listen, I think it's somewhere around there. But the thing is that, see, out in the world, the real world, not your little city or town or whatever, not where your passport goes, but in the real wild world, okay? When you come through with Bitcoin, now you can transact. because they don't want to touch you if you run around with this greenback necromancy piece of death that's got numbers tracking every single thing that it is doing. So what I'm saying is that you become instantly an international banker. See, that was my whole thing, is like when I started getting a lot of money and I could no longer put it under the mattress and I was a bit concerned, I started realizing that actually I have been sold a lie, that just because I had a whole room of cash like Brewster's Millions, it didn't mean that everyone was going to want to take it. And if I walked onto that Bugatti lot and tried to bring them suitcases with some big dudes, and they was going to be like, you need to go to the bank with that, because we don't know where that came from. We don't want to explain to anyone why we have this. It's like, no, they don't want it. So money is not really as valuable as you think it is when it comes to big purchases. So then you start thinking, well, I need to get into international banking then. This is the process. And so you start thinking of Panama, you start thinking of Switzerland, you start thinking of, Astoria. You start thinking of all these different places, right? But then you're like, man, that is just so far away from home. Like, I'm going to go over there. What am I going to say? I'm going to sit in the bank, me looking like this, and then be like, hey, I would like to know about your instruments for international transactions for large amounts of capital coming from fiat into whatever those instruments actually are. They're gonna be like, okay, sir, hold on. And they come back, when you've been waiting too long, something wrong, and some other people show up and say, hey, come with us. This is generally how it is out there. Now, cryptocurrency erases all that. Done. Like, you got Coinbase, which we're going to jump on the computer real quick and show people how you get started with actually buying cryptocurrency. What is the process? It is something that you need to start now, because it even takes a month or two to actually get all your system set up to where you can even purchase cryptocurrencies on the fly. And then in between time, if you choose to research this and dig into it a little bit more, if there's something that you see that's coming, you hear on the BBS board that is really going to be hitting to buy in now, it's only 50 cents or whatever, then you like trying to get your account together right then. It ain't going to happen, because it takes some time because of all the issues that have been dealt with within the past, especially in relation to fraud. So, meaning that they slow it up a little bit, the transactions, when it comes to getting authenticated from a fiat currency side into a cryptocurrency. So I'll give more details on that in a minute. So just remember, what we're talking about is the birth of a new God. Lo and behold, what creates a God? Think about that. What creates a God? Of course, I'm going to answer that question for you. We're going to take a break real quick, but I'm not done. I have a little bit more. I just want to give everybody opportunity to drink some water. Also to breathe a little bit. When you find yourself looking for your pen, but it's in your hand, that's when you know you need to take a break. It's like, where's my pen? Where are you? What creates a God? That's how gods are created. It will always be that way. Anything that we've learned to trust in, remember, we trust in those damn cows. It's like, yo, that cow not moving, we're done. Hopefully just keep going, That is the God we trust. Like, these weapons don't work, this shit bends, this stuff is not sharp. We ain't gonna win this war. We trust that gold. It's like, no, I can't hit the wormhole like this. I need to monetize this a little bit more and put this in monatomic. See, monatomic, monetize. Let me monetize this a little bit more, synthesize. Okay, you ready? Get the priest to bring down the Jed. All right, look, it looks like the parallax is set straight. Orion tilted right. Yeah, we're just using that as a keto. Okay, bam, you ready? All right, let's go. And you think it wasn't going on? Like, look at how the entire structure is configured. You can do this on the beach with DMT. You can get somewhere. So imagine you're sitting inside of an entire, you're standing right at the gate of the wormhole. You know what I mean? It's like, it's automatic from there. But what I'm saying is, what creates it is trust. Because even then, when you go on that journey, you got trust. It's like, yo, I trust these nobles right now. But everything is hinging on trust. And right now, fiat currency doesn't have trust. That's why every time something crazy happens, the price of cryptocurrency goes up. Because people get more afraid. Like, maybe the bank's not going to be there. How are they going to pay back that $300 billion? Did they estimate it at that? They just come up with numbers. The Chicago, 300 billion, or Texas, Houston, right? That was the goal. Chicago was to fix the crime problem. 300. 300 billion. You're like, is that high enough? It's high enough. Come back. All right. So Houston, 300 billion, whatever. Some crazy number. I don't even know if it's 300. Something crazy to pay that back. Puerto Rico, man, what did the idiot say? He said, man, we've been spending a lot of money on Puerto Rico. I mean, we got to hold off for a minute. Like, here's some paper towels. You see what I mean? So all of that, where's that money coming from? They can't even print the machine fast enough. But see, now you got another situation going on because people are taking their money and they're putting it into cryptocurrency. So they're not even actually getting it back, is what I'm saying. Like, it's all going into another world that they can't actually say, oh, we're coming in there to take that money. So this is why this is something you got to pay attention to, because it's going to change the world. Just like a while ago, you would have had some people when you were trying to tell them about the internet, if you knew everything about it, and you're like, look, Ida Mae, why don't you go and buy, I don't know, sweetpotato.com. Let's just buy that. Like, why don't you go and buy, I don't know, flag.com. It's like, they were like, all that computer stuff, that's just, you think people are going to really do it like that? You think people are going to really get fascinated with being in front of some machine? So this is what the conversation you will hear. And lo and behold, everybody who came in, just like in the beginning, remember, this is no different than the internet. In the beginning, there were thousands, hundreds of thousands of companies. If a company just put .com on the back of their name, if they were already established company, like Ace Hardware, .com, 500,000, 500 million went up on the shares. People like, Ace Hardware is going to be online, and then they're going to start making money because they're going to sell tools to everybody online. But Ace Hardware was always too expensive. So when, all the rest of them came and wiped them out, but it didn't stop Ace Hardware from making $500 million at that point. So you're going to see a lot of that in the crypto world. You're going to see people go all the way to the top. But then after a while, those Googles, those Yahoos who still barely hanging on, those eBays, those are going to be the only ones still remaining. And if you hold any of those coins, and these are now just popping up, remember, this is still some time out. It's time to get in where you can get in at $100 buys you like lots of the coins. It's not worth anything now. 2 years, you're sitting on 30,000, 40,000 just from that $100. Remember, these are not coins in the sense of how you understand money. These are technologies. That's why you got to remember that this is a technology, and stop thinking about what cryptocurrency translates back into in cash. It's like a wander. Hold on, I had a good analogy here, but it's basically like looking back. I call it looking back. So there's lots of scriptures. The wife of Lot or whatever, she looked back, she turned to salt. It's like there's you free some people, they keep looking back to eat. They looking back and like, yeah, let's go back. Are we sure we're going to make it out here? I think I'm going to go back. So this is the mindset of like trying to figure out, well, how much is that going to be in money? Can I transact with those? The answer to that question is yes. You can actually buy cryptocurrencies and then transact back into any currency, such as US dollar, etc., with a card. So, that kind of demystifies a lot for people, because sometimes they think they don't have that much money anyway, if you didn't learn all this already. So they got a little bit of money. So they're like, well, shoot, I don't want to like put my money somewhere where I can't spend it right away. So you can actually even spend your crypto dollars right away by having the right kind of integration. So just remember, this is more trustworthy. Why? Because it's operating on a code that can't be frauded. So there's never going to be in the Bitcoin. It's going to be like Pirate Bay. It's just not going to be able to get rid of it. It's not set up like that. And that's why the Nakamoto code, again, is so massive, is because it's not set up to be tampered with and to just be treated. You got to create all of that. And that's why coins that are coming out that are saying, even if they hint that they want to start implementing that kind of oversight, automatically people are like, nah, that ain't what cryptocurrency is about. If y'all trying to have peers and people looking at, no, I don't want that. I'd rather buy, and there's now 2,000 coins at least. Like we said, 2020, I'll buy that coin because that's exactly what they're against. So you see, like, everyone is very cautious in this field, and it's brand new. So again, you learn like a checklist of things to watch out for. You always stick by your guns, and you do really well. So last but not least here, now we got to talk about how it works when you got to now do this, right? Because somebody go drag you through a damn conversation. We were everywhere. We cried, we laughed, we shared, we did everything. So now it's about, well, how do I do it then? Because that's what I'm about. I'm a doer, right? So we're going to get it done. So now we're going to switch up here really quick to the computer. Before we completely go in, I'm going to switch it now and let it run. I'm going to take about a 5 minute just to refresh myself. We can go ahead and switch that now over to to what we're going to talk about. And what we're going to get into here is we're going to get into exactly what the process looks like for you coming into this from different angles of how you're going to make your current, because there's something for everybody. Because I know a lot of people back there thinking right now, like, oh man, but I don't, it take money to make money. And I definitely, this is cool and everything, but am I going to have to put some money somewhere? There's different ways in this. There's even a way to actually take your computer right now and start mining coins. And, you may not be mining a lot of coins, but you can even grind from there. So this is, I could take, if I was on my last leg, I'll take the library's computer. Like, I'm mining from the library. So anyway, we're going to get into that in just a moment, but we're going to go ahead and give a moment for us all to take a quick breather. And so if you see anybody coming into the chat room and they're like, hey, I don't hear anything, you know how they go crazy? Just tell them, yeah, we're on like a 5-minute break and we're about to come forward and we're going to get into this a bit deeper. And I see some folks already dropping some links, giving thanks to all the family that's on the chat, the tribe. Like for those that are just joining in, you know how we really get into it at Ambassador Training, spirittext.com. That's open source wealth for show. This is where, we first started ciphering this information. I'm still digging through this. I caught a new lead today about something called master nodes, which is another way that you can actually make money in this. That's a lot more, it just depends on how you float your boat, how much time you have in the day and how much attention you can spend on this, because that's actually going to equate to, in certain cases, exactly how well you're going to be able to do in it. So again, give me just a moment. Then we're going to come forward. We're going to finish this off. I'm going to take you through a step-by-step tutorial itself of how the process works with making money with cryptocurrency.